Hi Jo, welcome to the Listen.Better podcast. Here we are in June. Very excited to be chatting to you today. Nearly a decade of hope and glory. You are the co-founder, 10 years this year. How does it feel?
It feels really good, although I don't know where the time has gone. It's gone very, very quickly indeed.
Tell me about some of the highlights and lowlights you've experienced, Jo.
Yeah, you know what? When we started the agency, somebody said to me, when you run your own business, the highs will be way, way much higher, and the lows will be low, and that is 100% true. I think when I look back on the highs, there's the year, I think it was 2013, so going back in time, where we won all of the new agency awards that year. So all the big shows, PR Week, PRCA, the Sabre Awards, and that was brilliant to know that we were recognised in each of those shows and got that award. In terms of lows, actually not that many. I'm pleased to say. Occasionally, we don't always get it right. We've had, not always hired the right people. We occasionally get that wrong. Sometimes I've had to say no to clients and then kicked myself afterwards. We had an example a few years ago where a very kind of top supermarket wanted us on a pitch list, and we literally had to decline because we had too much on. And I remember at the time thinking, oh my goodness, am I mad? What am I doing? Anybody would bite the hand off to get that client in. But things have a habit, right, of coming around, and that client was Sainsbury's, and they now are a client and have been for the last 3 years. So even when there is a low, I'm an optimist, and I know that things will come right in the end.
I think, having watched your progress over the last decade, Jo, I've seen you very much as a people person and leading from the front, and your people skills have been exemplary. What would you say you've learned as a leader, particularly over the last 12 months during pandemic times? Can you be candid with us?
Yeah, I think you have to dig deep. I think that's the thing I've learned, and I think particularly over the last 12 months, I found myself occasionally in the morning going, dig deep, find the strength, because I think with any leader, it's trying to get that right balance of showing a bit of vulnerability, because we are all human after all, and you've got to share when you're not feeling great, and be able to be, you don't have to be perfect. But I think it's balancing that with also being calm and reassuring. And there's been a big call for that, obviously, over the last 12 months. And there have been times when, quite frankly, I don't know what we're doing. We're kind of making it up as we go along. But you can't let on, right? You can't let the team know that. So, or you can show a bit of vulnerability, but I think you have to lead from the front and say, look, be transparent, tell the team what's happening. Admit you don't have all the answers, but you're going to kind of figure it out. And I think that's the challenge, that if you show too much vulnerability, then the team are thinking, well, I need our leaders to know what they're doing. But if you spend all your time being, I guess, very kind of dogmatic, that's not great either, right? I think you want to know that the people running a business also have a human side. So trying to get that balance is the key thing from my perspective.
So strong leadership with a good dollop of empathy.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So tell me, how do you stay top of game after all this time without sort of that slide into perhaps becoming average or jumping when the client says jump? What's been your approach to making sure you stand out still?
That's a good question, Annabel. I think we've had a healthy fear of mediocrity. It's the thing, really that wakes me up in the middle of the night. I don't want to slide into mediocrity. I don't want people to go, oh, Hope and Glory, they used to be good, didn't they? I wonder what happened to them. And so we do invest quite a lot of time and energy and money actually into training. And that might be copywriting training, it might be proofreading, it's definitely creativity training, just to ensure that we continue to be on top of our game. Because I think complacency is really the enemy of the good. And so that restlessness, that sense of actually it's our next campaign that needs to be our best campaign, I think you have to hold on to that. So I'm probably a complete pain in the neck to work with, because there is that sense of, is this good enough? What are we going to do next? But I think you have to keep hungry for that, because otherwise you can become complacent and maybe a bit arrogant and a bit lazy. And I think that would be a real shame, right?
So it sounds like you've really embedded creativity as a key pillar in your agency, and you've won awards for that. Do you bring in external support to help refresh the pot? How do you approach ensuring that all your team are completely switched on in the creative sense?
Yeah, we do quite a few different things, actually. We do bring in external support and training. We have a wonderful person that we work with who comes in and does creativity training for the whole team. And also the senior team have kind of top-ups of that in terms of facilitation training and looking at different techniques that we can use in brainstorming that will unlock those genius ideas. Well, that's the hope anyway, right? And so we definitely do that. We have a belief that an idea can come from anywhere. And actually, when I look back at our, I guess, book of work, some of the best ideas haven't necessarily come with somebody who's got creative in their title. They've come from maybe an accountant's exec, or that insight has come from somewhere else. So we are true believers in everybody participating in the creative process and being a part of that. Having said that, we do have creatively titled people, is what we call them. There is a handful, because there are some people who are just more skilled in creativity, who just have a real passion for it, and we try and play to people's strengths as well. So we do have that, but we've resisted calling them a team, because I think at no point do we want to put the rest of the agency off or make it feel like it's somebody else's job to come up with the ideas. So it's a collective endeavor, a shared endeavor to come up with the ideas, but we do have some people who probably lean into that a bit more than others.
Excellent. And I guess as we're now moving into this new transition post the worst of the pandemic, let's hope, with hybrid working becoming the norm, how are you feeling about that? How's the team feeling? What have you done to ensure that you keep that very creative and galvanized culture that you've maintained all this time?
I think we're all looking forward to getting back. I mean, I look back over the last 12 months and the team have been, they've been phenomenal, really. Everybody has worked to a very high level. We've all managed to keep that teamwork kind of ethos going all the way through. But we're people and we miss each other. So the plan will be to get to a place where we are kind of hybrid, but probably four days in the office and 1 day working from anywhere. And that's really just because what we miss at the moment is the creative collisions. Those moments when you're having a cup of coffee or you're popping out for a sandwich and you walk alongside somebody and you have an idea or you share a learning or there's an insight. And that's not happening as much when we are all working from home. So certainly, I think our belief is that we need to be together to do more of that. So I think the team, probably a little bit of apprehension. We're going to do it in a very phased way. No one will get left behind, and we've talked about that. And we will probably go 2 days a week to begin with, then up to 3 days, and do it gradually because, the pandemic's had an impact on people very differently, and people, everybody's got stuff, right, that they're having to battle with or kind of work through. So we're very mindful of that as we go back. But I think looking forward to that time of being back together and the joy that being together brings.
I like that phrase, chance collision, I think you talked about.
Creative collision.
Creative collision, yes. And and a build on that perhaps is that chance collaboration that might not happen otherwise. You can't stage that with a Zooms or team call. So yes, those water cooler moments, coming into the office at the same time, and that and working across teams as well, in terms of different client account teams you're working on and generating ideas. Okay, so what's the next decade going to look like, particularly for Hope and Glory, but wider for the PR industry as a whole? What are your views?
Yeah, I think if we start with the PR industry more generally, I think it could be, they talk about the roaring 20s, don't they? And I think it could be our decade as a PR industry. I think PR really stood up to the plate over the pandemic. Talking candidly, I think marketing teams and brand teams were slightly caught napping. They couldn't move fast enough to respond to the pandemic. And actually, I look back at the clients that we work with, whether that's O2, whether that's IKEA, whether that's Amex, and those were the brands that were making and setting direction and doing it quickly. We can be really agile and nimble. And, the in-house corporate affairs teams were making decisions that we then communicated that were some, life-changing for some people. IKEA had testing sites in their car parks. O2 made sure that people weren't paying for data if it was a health site, when they were making fundamental business decisions. And I think that's really exciting. And I think that's here to stay. So I think it could very much be PR's decade.
I can see you smiling. It's because my cat has just arrived, but he often turns up. He likes an interview. So forgive me for his interruption.
No, wonderful, wonderful. And actually, the other question you asked, isn't it, Annabel, was what's kind of, I guess, in store for Hope and Glory. I think we will continue on the same path that we've been on to date. It's organic. For us, it's about organic growth. We aren't about to, what's the word? Diversify. We love what we do, which is consumer and creative brand PR. We want to do more of that. I think there has been in the past this sort of perception there's a glass ceiling when it comes to consumer PR, that you get to kind of £7 or £8 million worth of fee, and you can't really get much beyond that without going into corporate and public affairs and city. But quite frankly, we're not good at that stuff. What we're good at is great ideas and great media relations and making them happen. So I think we'll just go deeper in the areas that we love doing. So probably more content, more influencer work, probably more purpose work, because again, a lot of our brands are doing that, whether that's IKEA or Sainsbury's. So I think probably more of the same. Keep growing, keep having fun, keep doing good work. And that's the plan.
Great stuff. And one final question. I know you're speaking at the Provoke Cannes Condensed in Brighton, my hometown, in the next couple of weeks. Can you give us a sneak preview of what your talk's going to be on? Have you formulated that yet?
You know what, actually, it's going to be a debate. So it's a panel interview, and we're looking at creativity more generally. So I think it will be lively. We're sharing the stage with many of our competitors who are also our friends, because I think that's the wonderful thing, right, about the PR industry, that you make some good friends and allies in other agencies. So we're going to be debating the role of the creative, and whether you can be born creative, and actually are we entering a phase where we actually hire people who have come from a creative training and background and implant them into a PR agency, or actually do we do what we've always done, which is you kind of start as a PR and then you diverge and become a creative a little bit later in your career. So I think there'll be a lot of debate around that, which is really interesting. I'm not sure there is one definitive answer. I think there are lots of ways of coming to and getting to great ideas, but I'm really interested in the debate.
I can't think of a better person to be on that panel, Jo. Thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed chatting to you, and wish you all the very best for the next decade, and happy 10th birthday.
Thanks, Annabel. I appreciate that.